On the night of April 18, 2020, Portapique, Nova Scotia, a village of about 100 residents on the Bay of Fundy, became the starting point of what would become a shooting rampage. It would last more than 13 hours, spanning across a more than 100-kilometer area, with victims' bodies strewn across 16 crime scenes. By analyzing RCMP statements, interviews, GPS coordinates, and records, we were able to paint perhaps the most comprehensive picture to date of how the worst mass shooting in Canadian history unfolded. We confirm with several sources that prior to 10 p.m., gunman Gabriel Wortman allegedly assaults and ties up his longtime girlfriend in Portapique, 40 kilometers west of the small town of Truro, after leaving a party. At an unknown time, she escapes and hides in the woods. Police receive a 911 call about a shooting in rural Portapique. 25 minutes later, officers arrive on scene and find bodies on the road and buildings on fire.
So there's a structure fire. There's a person down there with a gun. They're still looking for him. The patient we have got shot by him. He was just down there observing the fire, checking out the fire. So there could be other patients around the fire that could be gone already.
According to property records we obtained, Jamie and Greg Blair, Peter and Joy Bond, Corey Ellison, Lisa McCulley, Jolene Oliver, Aaron Tuck, and their daughter 17-year-old Emily Tuck, Don Madsen and Frank Gulichin, Elizabeth Joan Thomas, and John Zal.
The devastation there has been described as a war zone by people that I speak to that have been in there. The devastation that's there is just catastrophic.
At 10:35 p.m., a witness sees a vehicle believed to be the gunman's leaving Portapique through a field. At this point, police believe the gunman is in a replica RCMP cruiser.
The gunman was a bit obsessed with policing. He was a collector of police memorabilia and paraphernalia.
The gunman then heads east and arrives in an industrial area in the community of Debert, about 26 kilometers from the scene of the first shootings. At 11:32 p.m., Nova Scotia RCMP announced on Twitter they are responding to a firearms complaint in Portapique and ask people to avoid the area and lock their doors. RCMP issued no public alert or additional statement on Twitter for 8 hours. What the gunman did overnight remains unknown. At the crack of dawn, the gunman leaves Debert and travels north along Highway 4. He is captured on video entering the Wentworth area, roughly 60 kilometers north of Portapique. He heads to a home on Hunter Road, where he kills 2 men and a woman, believed to be Alana Jenkins, Sean McLeod, and their neighbor Tom Bagley. He remains at the victim's home for some time, according to police. Around the same time, his common-law spouse comes out of hiding and calls 911, telling police Wortman assaulted her before the killing rampage, has several firearms, and that he is wearing an authentic RCMP uniform and is driving a replica RCMP vehicle. RCMP say on Twitter the Portapique situation involves an active shooter. Almost an hour later, RCMP release a photo of the gunman on Twitter and say he is considered armed and dangerous.
I almost lost sense of where I was, not because it didn't seem real, but because it didn't seem like this is something that would happen in Canada. It felt like something, out of a movie, and I really felt like I wasn't in Nova Scotia. There was that kind of effect on me that, it couldn't be real.
At 9:43 a.m., the gunman is spotted at Highway 4 and Highway 246. He kills a woman, believed to be Lillian Hislop, who is walking along the highway in Wentworth Valley area. Police say the gunman drives south to a home on Highway 4 in the Glenholm area. The residents call 911, saying they know the shooter. They do not answer the door, and he eventually leaves.
Judging from what we know now, there has to be some element of planning that goes into this because it appears he did have targets that were identified.
Video captures the gunman driving east in Debert. RCMP tweet that people should avoid Highway 4 in Glenholm as the gunman is in the area. The shooter continues northbound on Highway 4 and reaches Plains Road in Debert, close to where he had reportedly stayed overnight. He pulls over a car and kills the driver. He continues along the highway and does the same to a second driver. The victims are believed to be Kristen Beaton and Heather O'Brien. Shortly after, the gunman is captured on video passing through Truro. He takes Highway 2 to Millbrook. Police share publicly for the first time on Twitter that the gunman may be driving a vehicle that looks like an RCMP cruiser and wearing what appears to be an RCMP uniform. At 10:25 a.m., the assailant stops outside a business in Millbrook First Nation, gets out of the vehicle, removes his jacket and puts on a reflective vest, then continues south on Highway 2 through Hilden. The gunman is captured on surveillance video taken at Brookfield Esso Station. 17 minutes later, the gunman pulls up alongside RCMP Constable Chad Morrison in Shubenacadie. The gunman shoots Morrison, but not fatally. Moments later, the gunman collides head-on with Constable Heidi Stevenson. He fatally shoots Stevenson and takes her weapon. A bystander, believed to be Joey Weber, arrives to help but is killed by the gunman. The gunman takes Weber's silver SUV. Shortly after, the RCMP tweet the gunman is traveling south on Highway 102 from Brookfield. He arrives at the home of a female acquaintance believed to be Gina Goulet. He kills her and leaves, driving her Mazda 3.
I was driving north and towards the Brookfield area. It's probably halfway to Portapique when I started seeing just a stream of officers, some in marked cruisers, unmarked cars flying at me. Maybe 15, 20 cars. It felt like, the Daytona 500. They were just whipping by. So at that point, I kind of knew that I was maybe in the vicinity of where this gunman was.
The gunman continues moving south on Highway 102 and stops at Irving Big Stop gas station in Enfield, about 100 kilometers south of Portapique, to refuel. RCMP say tactical officers also arrived to refuel, and there is an encounter with the gunman. Wortman was shot dead by police at 11:26 a.m.
Probably 50 cars and hundreds of police officers were around there. At that point, one of the officers that was setting up a barricade, I asked, "Did you guys catch him?" And he just shook his head and then said yes. Today, you hear of mass shootings that happen in, moments, in maybe 13 minutes, not 13 hours.
In total, Wortman traveled at least 150 kilometers during his rampage. 22 lives were lost. It was the worst mass shooting in Canada's modern history.